15 minutes ago, the emergency medical response boat broke the atmosphere of the agricultural planet LV-95 to experience a breathtaking sunrise over the estuary community of White River. The team was responding to a possible routine outbreak. Easy run, McCoy thought. His team hits the dirt, isolate and inoculate the population, have a party with the locals, then jump out in the morning, rendezvous with command. When Paxton showed him the results of the tests, his heart sank. This would be the second time this tour he had to give this order. He knew it was accelerating, even if command wanted to ignore it. 15 minutes later, the boat was hitting the upper atmosphere to what appeared to be a breathtaking sunset. The duality of the imagery was not lost on him. Command, this is Commander John McCoy, Medboat 605. Authorization code Bravo Delta 227. Positive diagnosis of infectious disease 1135. Repeat, positive diagnosis. Request immediate execution of treatment code Firestorm. Let the record show. Planetary population 2,562. Hello, and welcome to The Bad Spot, an actual play where I, Matt Risby, and I alone am playing through Ironsworn Starforged. This week's Tale from the Drift was from Joel Delaney, who used the oracles from the original Ironsworn to draw inspiration from before giving them a sci-fi twist, and I think it works pretty well. So a huge thanks to Joel for sending that in for us all to enjoy. Whilst I have your attention, why don't you leave a like, subscribe, and click the little bell icon so you can follow along with the campaign each and every week. These little things are really important for supporting the channel and supporting what I do, and if you really want to support the channel, then why not check out the Bad Spot Patreon. There you'll get early access to all episodes, exclusive behind the scenes content, and your name on screen, like these lovely people. A couple more things to mention this week before we get started. Firstly, nominations are open for the Crit Awards, which are a great way to throw some love the way of your favourite TTRPG creators. Now, I'm not asking you to nominate me, although that would be nice. This is a great opportunity to shout out anyone you think deserves a little recognition in the space. I have voted for a bunch of my favourite creators across loads of different categories, and I think you should too. If you'd like to do that, then you'll find a link in the description below. And lastly, I want to plug another podcast that I was on recently called This One Goes to 11, where I was asked to make the case for an album that I thought was perfect. I had a great time on this show talking about one of my favourite records with Michael and Tyler, and if you want to check that out and hear what album I chose to bring before the tribunal, then you'll also find a link to that in the description. Last time out, Archer and the Shadows work their way back through Narthex Prime, with the Shadows using their mystic powers to avoid detection. This comes at a cost, however, as several of them die with the effort this takes. Luna's struggles in the hangar continue as she leads the fight against the Pact and tries to recover the Eclipse. The wounded Cole and the reactivated Griff make some repairs whilst the mercenaries are all but wiped out. Risking everything, Luna has to manually activate the locks on the ship's landing gear. She does, but the Vanguard move in, killing the last few mercenaries. They have Luna at their mercy until Archer and the Shadows arrive at the same time as the reinforcements in the shape of hundreds of acolytes, masters and Vanguard. All seems lost, but two Shadows throw handfuls of black iron dust into the air and the others use their powers to energize it with deadly kinetic force to wipe out the Pact. Again, this comes as a cost, and only 8 survive. They join Archer, Luna, Griff and Cole on the Eclipse and leave the hangar. With the weapons arrays on Narthex Prime about to shoot them out of space, the Iron Gate activated by the Shadows opens, and the mighty Leviathan, last seen in the spine of Kronos, emerges, bursting through the surface of the complex at the exact time that the reactor in the forge melts down, splitting the fortress in two, bringing down the E-Drive inhibitors and giving the Eclipse the chance to jump into the drift. As they do, the gravely injured Cole succumbs to his wounds and dies in the pilot's seat, knowing he achieved his mission of finally getting everyone to safety. That was a lot last episode, and I had some messages that were pretty emotional about Cole, and honestly, I feel the same. I think I had underestimated how attached I'd become to him, and I think I had become also attached to what he represented in the story. the idea that there are people in this world, in my version of the Forge, who are dedicated to protecting others, who are selfless. And that means quite a lot in my version of the Forge, which is a pretty unforgiving place. It's a place where everyone is out for themselves and everyone is just trying to survive. So the notion that, people exist here who contradict those ideas, I think maybe comforting in a way. And now Cole's gone. That part of the story is over, and like he's been with us since the beginning of season 2. That idea of comfort is gone as well. His reassuring presence is gone. It's no longer there, and it's a weird thing to say about a side character in a game. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about him. And for those that got in touch about it, or made a comment on the video, yeah, I hear you. It was hard for me too. Now, we have a move left over from last session. As the Eclipse made its escape, we left Narthex Prime in a dire state, having been split in two by the emergence of the Leviathan. So it feels appropriate to make the move, fulfill your vow. So let's take a look. It says when you reach the end of your quest, roll the challenge dice and compare to your progress. Now we are at 8 out of 10, which feels good. It feels appropriate. So let's roll the dice. A strong hit. On a strong hit, your vow is fulfilled. Mark a reward on your quest legacy track per the vow's rank. So let's mark this up. That is a full box. And it's time, right? It's been a while since we looked at these boxes, and I always forget about them. I knew this moment would come. But we've got other vows running as well, and I think it's high time we went through to see what we've got open and mark some progress. And I kind of find it funny that like my most popular video is how to play Ironsworn. And this is a great example of how not to play the game, because forgetting about these vows and all the things you've got running in the background is kind of dumb. And that is my bad. But we'll check in on them now. So we have got a lot of progress to mark. The last time I did this, and I had to go all the way back and check, right, was 16 episodes ago, which is fair to say too long ago. So we have this long-running vow, find the lens using the iron gate, and we also have our background vow too. Now, these two vows are actually quite closely linked, and in the past, when we've marked progress on one, it's meant marking progress on the other. And I think that if I was to play this campaign again, I don't think I would have started the vow about finding the lens using the iron gate. They're practically the same vow. I would have found a better way to tie them together, but we are too far down this path now. No turning back. So let's talk about what we have done since the last time we checked in on these. And like I said before, I had to go back and check, and I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of my episodes, I'm sorry to say. But the last time we did it was actually just after we left the spine of Kronos and arrived at Purgatory Station. So that was a long time ago. That was kind of like towards like the middle of season 2, I think. And seeing as we're coming to the end of season 3, yeah, it was a long time ago, and a lot has happened since. And I really should use the end of session move, shouldn't I? Because it's right there in the rulebook. And it will come as a surprise to no one that I have not done that. And I think the last time that I did this and updated all my vows in one go, because I've not done it for ages, I said, hey, I should really use that end of session move. And yeah, I haven't. My bad. Like I said, this one's on me. So, okay, let's have a little look at the move, reach a milestone. It says, when you make headway in your quest by doing any of the following, and then there is a whole list, you may mark progress per the rank of the vow. So, I've prepared a little boiled down York Notes version of what has happened since the last time we marked progress. So, strap yourselves in and let's see how much progress we can mark for doing the following. So we found ourselves carrying out a mission on the behest of Dr. Freeman, who ran a black market data operation out of Purgatory Station. This involved going to a planet to realign a satellite dish, but we found ourselves having to fight some fungal zombies who were actually elite bodyguards that had been infected by the bioweapon we first saw all the way back in Season 1. Turns out someone in this sector was trying to purchase the bioweapon, but there was a shootout and it got inadvertently discharged. Having fought the zombies and realigned the dish, we were released from Purgatory and asked to escort human cargo to Wellspring. The human cargo turned out to be a shadow. We arrived in Wellspring on the desolate glacial planet of Canna to drop them off. There, we encountered a shadowy organisation known only as the Court of the Crimson Shards, who took the shadow into their care, possibly, although no way to be sure, and left Archer with a mysteriously open-ended invitation to return. With that obligation fulfilled, we headed to the last known location of the Iron Gate that Cole and his peacekeepers were pulled through. We found it, activated it, and used it to return to the Verdant world to rescue the rest of Cole's crew. They then return to the Delphian Flux, but when they do, the Pact there about to destroy the gate the Eclipse just exited from. The Eclipse ends up bringing down the Pact ship, known as the Flagellant, before making our escape. After this, we head to the base where Cole's peacekeepers were stationed previously and arrive to find it had been taken over and turned into an orbital metropolis known as Lastport. There, Archer gets kidnapped, Luna gets tangled up with some mercenaries, and Griff escapes after a protocol is activated by the Professor revealing her location. Then the Pack turn up demanding the Eclipse. Griff boards the Eclipse and leaves on his own to reach the Professor, but is caught by the Pact. Archer is rescued by Luna and they meet the Anvil, the ruler of Lastport, and the pair agree to bring down the Pact as they rescue the Eclipse. Whew. That's about it, right? I think that is generally what has happened since the last time we updated our vows. And like I said, I'll say it again, this is all my fault. Absolutely done a shocking job of staying on top of this stuff. I own that. So that's my bad. Let's go through this. So our current vow to find the super weapon known as the Lens using the Iron Gate. And I actually think we should change the name of this. It should be using the Iron Gate network. So I'll change the name of that. Let's have a little look at our progress. We're currently at 4 out of 10 on that. Have we overcome any obstacles in direct service of this vow? I think we have. I think negotiating our way out of Purgatory counts, although the fungal zombie bit was kind of part of that, so I'm not going to kind of give that any extra credence. I think that navigating Lastport definitely counts as that, and I think that might be it. In terms of meaningful insight, well, finding out where the Professor is through Griff's new protocol, definitely. And understanding what the Pact were up to and how that feeds into the Iron Gates or Black Iron specifically, that definitely counts. Have we completed any perilous expeditions? Well, we've done at least one actual expedition with a track that I can remember, but I don't think that counts. But what I will say is returning to collect Cole's crew and dropping them off at Lastport definitely feels like an expedition that was pretty perilous that we resolved, so I will also take that. Now, for acquiring a crucial item or resource, I think we definitely have. Specifically, having the shadows with us, their power is immense. And now I'm not saying I'm using them as a resource, they are people, but we have them on board with us and they are traveling with us now. And in terms of earning vital support, possibly. We will definitely see later in this episode. Now, defeating a notable foe, we've definitely done that because I think the Pact might count as a notable foe. So that's progress too. That is quite a bit of progress made. That is us up to 7.5 out of 10 now. And like I said, this vow and the background vow are pretty much the exact same thing. We established now that Professor Darwin is on a mysterious planet where the Lens is. How she got there, what she's doing, who knows. I didn't know this when I started these vows, but yeah, I've said they should both have been kind of folded into each other. So we marked progress 7 times on that previous vow, so I guess we can do the exact same thing on our background vow, which puts us up to 4 out of 10. And I don't think there's anything specifically outside of the things that we already did on the previous vow that counts. And I think this is kind of getting awkward because like we're getting to the end of this story now. We're getting to the point where I'm going to have to fulfill this vow and I'm going to have to roll against it with 4 progress. And yeah, like I said, I would definitely have done this differently if I kind of started over. And I think this might be a topic for a video like further down the line about pacing your game. Because it's difficult, like pacing vows is a challenge. But yeah, sometimes you have to kind of show your working to realise what you've done. So thank you for your patience while listening to me kind of go through that and kind of sound it out. So also, I've just kind of thought that like looking at it, I changed the name of our vow to kind of find the Lens using the Iron Gate network. I think that vow actually is different completely. I think that knowing what we know now, knowing what we've learned since we swore that vow, I think this vow should be find and destroy the lens using the Iron Gate network, because that's what we got to do, right? We've got to destroy it. It's too much power. Now, I don't know, Archer doesn't know what the professor is doing, but we have to destroy this thing before it falls into the wrong hands. And I think that's an important distinction to make, and I'm going to make it here and make it clear now. So that is all the bookkeeping out of the way. Let's get on with the episode. Luna is cold. She blows into her hands and rubs them together in an attempt to keep warm, but it isn't doing much. She's been sat alone out here on the glacier for a few hours now, sat on a rocky outcrop looking out across the vast expanse of crystal blue and white ice that goes on and on. There are these seams of deep purple ice sprawling out beneath the surface like veins, and down below her, a little way down the slope, is the spot where they buried Cole. A small patch of earth that would catch the sun as it rose to the east each morning. It seemed to be just about the best they could do for him, but Luna was twisted into knots inside. She had lost before. She'd lost nearly everyone she cared about, friends, family, Severinus, now Cole. Cole was different. She led him to his end. She was the one giving orders. This was on her. This was her fault, and she knew that she would never be over it. She had been so focused on that spot of earth down below her that she had not noticed Archer sit down next to her. The smell of the coffee he was passing her in a tin flask was the thing that snapped her out of it. She hated coffee, but she took the flask and held it in her hands to keep them warm. Archer sipped at his in silence, and Luna eventually breaks it. I don't need you to tell me it's not my fault. I don't need you to tell me that Cole knew what he was doing, that he was a professional soldier who understood the danger. I don't need any of that. And Archer says, well, what do you need? Luna hangs her head. She doesn't have an answer for him. She just knows she doesn't want to feel like this. Although there's no way she would ever say that to Archer. And conversely, Archer knows there's nothing he can say right now that will make her feel better, so he'll just be with her. Just sit and drink his coffee and share this quiet, sad, reflective moment. And I think this is a move. And that move is hearten, which says, when you socialise, share intimacy, or find a moment of peace, roll plus heart. And it's not particularly clear in this example who is doing the heartening, right? It seems like Archer is trying to make Luna feel better, but it's Luna's track that will change. And the rules don't really account for that, but there is a little bit that I'm going to use to do something a little different. The little bit on the rules below the move says, if you hearten by building your relationship with an ally, such as sharing something of yourself or providing mutual emotional support, one or both of you may make the move and roll the dice. If the results are wildly divergent, consider how the two of you come away from this time together with different understanding or reaction. Well, it just so happens that a long time ago, when I took over, when Luna took over the story, and I started rolling dice for her, I made her dice on the roller orange, whilst Archer's are red. So I thought, why don't I just combine the two and make one big roll for the pair of them? So let's make the move hearten. Rolling plus heart. Okay, that is a strong hit for Archer and a weak hit for Luna. So it says, on a strong hit, you find companionship or comfort and your spirit is strengthened. If you are shaken, clear the impact and take +1 spirit. Otherwise, take +2 spirit. So let's deal with Archer first. His spirit is going to go up to 4. And on a weak hit, which is what Luna got, it says, as above, but this indulgence is fleeting. Envision an interruption, complication, or inner conflict, then lose momentum. So Luna's spirit is technically going to go up to maximum, although that's not entirely reflective of how she's feeling, I'm sure. And her momentum is going to drop down to 5. So I think that Luna is comforted just to be in Archer's presence. I think that the two of them have just been through something incredibly stressful and dangerous, And unlike the other times that they've done that, they did it separately. And I think this little moment right here on the glacier is them just taking like a minute, to pause and reset. But to Luna, there are more questions. And I think that she is perhaps moving on from the reassurance that Archer's giving a little quicker. And her mind is now racing with what everything means in this new reality. Like, Cole is gone. The Pact are either gone or severely weakened. E-drive travel is now possible in this sector. The clans are probably aware of this, and the blockade that they've been kind of holding outside the sector will sometime be brought down. And, there are about to be potentially cataclysmic changes in this sector, in the Delphian flux. Those who couldn't leave can now do so, and those that couldn't enter are also now free to do that. And all this kind of big picture stuff playing on in the background begs the question, why are we here? And Luna says, so you want to tell me why we're here? And Archer takes this little comms unit out of his jacket pocket and studies it closely. And after a few seconds, it pings. Archer rotates it round and sort of holds it out in front of him whilst moving it kind of in front of him, like in a half circle, pointing it towards the horizon until it pings again. And he puts it away and pulls out his little scope and zooms in on a rock formation way off in the distance. And he says, "We've been summoned." He passes Luna the scope and she looks. And she can see an opening, a cave. She says, "That sounds ominous." And then we cut to Archer and Luna, and they are at the cave opening, right? Archer has got his Mahari outpost parka on, and Luna's in her poncho. And we can see the eclipse down on the glacier, maybe a kilometre or so in the distance. So they have come quite far to get there. The cave is, again, clearly man-made. It's got these metal supports lining the walls, and there's grated industrial flooring beneath them. And they can hear this scurrying around, these little critters, little kind of furry rodent type things, kind of rat-sized, but they've got oversized back legs and huge ears and huge eyes to see in the dark. And they kind of, these things, look at Archer and Luna and observe them with indifference before sniffing the air and skittering off into the dark. Above them, orange lights come on and trail off into the dark as they step inside, each one glowing a little brighter, lighting the way as they begin their journey. And Luna says, kind of offhand, "This seems like a lot of effort to go to, all this secrecy." And Archer says, "There's probably a good reason, and I don't want to know what it is." And they slowly make their way in deeper and deeper into the gloom, and they keep up this pace for maybe 5-10 minutes. They're quite far in before Archer puts his hand up for Luna to stop. The metal grating underfoot has disappeared, and they are standing on solid ice. Archer drops to a crouch, and with his fingers finds something carved into the ice, into the floor. His fingers trace the outline. Luna brings her rifle's light over. On the floor is this stylized, large symbol. It covers quite an area, maybe 5 or 6 meters square, and they can see it is a splintered shield. Archer says, "We're here." Luna raises her gun. Archer reaches back and pushes the barrel back down towards the floor. He motions for her with the other hand to be cool. A woman's voice comes softly out of the darkness. "For someone who's just passing through, you've caused an awful lot of trouble." A figure steps forward, stopping just short of the main source of dim light in this room, remaining in shadow. And out of the corner of her eye, Luna can see more figures moving. She goes to raise her gun again, but Archer has a firm grip on the barrel. And Archer says, I try and keep a low profile, but what can I say? Trouble seems to find me. And the figure steps forward into the light, and it takes Archer by surprise. This person is purposefully choosing to reveal themselves. It's a woman, an older woman, maybe in her 60s. She's pale-skinned. She has burning amber eyes. Her face is partially covered by the collar of this long, dark maroon jacket, so only her eyes and the bridge of her nose are visible. Her hair is scraped back into a tight top knot. And she isn't, but there's something about the way that the light hits her and the way she stands, the way she's kind of carrying herself, the way she's dressed. It makes her feel like she's incredibly tall, like 10 feet tall. And Archer thinks this effect is probably like quite deliberate, right? Okay, let's roll up a name for this person. 48 is Kaisa. I'm going to say Kaisa. That's how I'm going to say that. Kaisa. Kaisa. Right. So, after what seems like an age passes in the silence between them all, Archer says, I hate to seem impolite, but you asked us here. Do you mind getting to what it is that you want? Kaisa says, so many things. Questions people have spent years trying to answer, you seem to have solved in a matter of weeks. You've safely navigated the spine of Kronos, liberated Lastport, and brought the all-powerful Pact to its knees. Archer says, look, I'm just trying to get from A to B. Kaisa just stops him dead and says, Cobalt Nux. Archer doesn't react, tries to keep a poker face, doesn't say anything. She continues, that is where you were going. Archer doesn't want to give anything away. She continues, you are looking for someone you lost. You are looking for something powerful. And Archer, just trying to deflect, says, aren't we all? And Kaisa says, she left a trail for you to follow. We've been trying to ward others off that trail for many years. There's something about the way this is happening that Archer feels suspicious, like Kaisa is fishing for information. So again, he's kind of deflecting and says, is that so? Kaisa says, the lens is an ancient myth to most, but it is very real, and its location is a secret we are sworn to protect. And Archer can feel Luna trying to bring the barrel of her gun up again, and he says, well, you're lucky I don't know what you're talking about, so if you don't mind, I think we'd better just leave. And he starts backing slowly away, not trusting any of this. And then he hears someone move in to block their way out, kind of behind them. And he hears a voice come from behind him. And it's a familiar voice. It says, hello, Book. And Archer says, don't call me that. The conduit circles around into the light. She looks gaunt, and she was always kind of lithe and lean, but she looks kind of thin and sickly. And Archer says, I should have known I'd get sold out again, and it stands to reason it would be you. And she smiles. She says, you're going to love where this is going. And I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to one of my viewers, I think goes by the name of E.L. Brown, who a year ago, when I did the Sector Creation live stream and I first ever mentioned this secretive band of spies / courtesans that eventually turned into the Court of the Crimson Shards, they said in a comment, I know I'm late to the party and this suggestion probably wouldn't apply at this point, but the moment you started talking about the courtesans, what popped into my head is that Conduit should be a member or ex-member of these courtesans. And I said, I'm totally stealing this. And here we go. 1 year later, I have managed to work this suggestion back into the story. Thank you to E.L. Brown for that suggestion. It's made the story all the more richer. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think that I've been sitting on that for a while, and I kind of really wanted to wear that in. So here we are. So Kaisa says, the Court of the Crimson Shards has operatives everywhere. Some of our operatives choose profit over duty. The conduit gives this like little fake bow, a kind of a curtsy type thing. And Kaisa says, but they remain part of our network. And the conduit says, I'm racking my brains here, Book. I can't figure out why it is you are still here, given that I handed you all the information you needed. And Archer kind of looks confused and says, you did? The conduit says, I was semi-conscious, but I recall it quite clearly. And this, everybody, is me finally resolving a strong hit that I rolled all the way back in April 2022 as a result of a develop your relationship roll on the sleeper station after they escaped from Sepulchre the second time, where the conduit, who was recovering from a near fatal injury, she removed, I don't know if anyone will remember this, she removed these thin metal devices from her scalp and inserted them into Archer's datapad. And I said at the time that I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but I do now. It has taken 2 years, but here we are. And the conduit says, I'm kind of surprised you haven't acted on that information. And Archer says, I've been sort of distracted since the last time we met. And Luna says, kind of just to Archer, you didn't even check what she gave you? The conduit says, God damn it, Book. And Archer says, don't call me that. Kaisa cuts in of this kind of back and forth and says, time is short. The power vacuum in the Delphian flux will soon be filled. It will be plundered and pillaged. Fortunately for you, no one will be looking for an outbounder-class vessel in amongst the chaos. And the conduit turns and says, that isn't strictly true. And everyone turns to look at her and she says, Vega. He's on the trail too. Blake and I tracked him across the best part of 2 sectors. And Archer says, where is Blake? The conduit says, she's dead. He killed her. Nearly killed me too. He's changing. He's grown incredibly powerful. He's looking for you. He knows where Darwin is. And Archer says, if he knows where she is, why is he looking for me? She says, the gates. He still can't use them. And Archer is now massaging the bridge of his nose. This is a lot of information to all come at once from various sources. And he says, so what did you give me? And the conduit says, a map. A map of what's left of the Iron Gate network. And Luna, once again, in Archer's ear says, you've had that the whole time? And the conduit says, Vega got into the Griffin Institute. He killed everyone. I'm pretty sure he has it too. And Archer then puts 2 and 2 together and says, so the minute we activate a gate, the conduit finishes and says, he will know. And Luna, off to the side, is rolling her eyes and says, this just keeps getting better. Kaisa steps forward and extends her hand to Archer. She says, take this. She hands him a small, slender device. It's about the size of a pen. It's chrome, and it has these tiny little wires running like silver ivy all around it. Kind of looks decorative, but also it has a purpose. And Kaisa says, this should help you pick your way through the carnage. It will relay the jump data of nearly all clan ships in the sector. It will ping if one drops in your vicinity. Consider it an early warning system. And Archer pockets it. And like you can see, he's uncomfortable, like he doesn't know what to do in this weird social situation. And the conduit says, let's go. And she leads them out. And Archer says, wait, you're coming? The conduit says, well, I need a ride. Where to? And she says, anywhere. And we'll cut to them, all aboard the Eclipse, getting ready to take off. Luna is staring at the pilot's seat, where she has become so accustomed to seeing Cole, his reliable presence. And now that seat is taken by the conduit, who has mostly proved herself to be untrustworthy at best, and downright duplicitous at worst. And amongst everything else, it is just one more thing that doesn't sit right with Luna. She looks out of the rear viewport as they lift off the glacier, looking back at the spot where they laid Cole to rest. She gets a real bad feeling as the planet of Canna becomes a white speck in the distance, and they jump into the drift. So where are we going? Like, we have a name of a place, which is Cobalt Nux, and Griff was going there, but Griff is largely useless. He's a malfunctioning survey bot, and I think he just got the coordinates from his new directive and just took off in that direction, but he hadn't obviously factored in, because he's basically just a toaster, is that the Cobalt Nux is not in this sector at all. But now Archer knows he has a partial map of the Iron Gate network. It stands to reason that that is going to be how we get there, right? We have to use the gates. There is at least one in this sector because we've already gone through it. No, actually, that gate got destroyed, didn't it? So we can't go to that one. I take it back. So there has to be more, right? There's another gate in this sector, and that's where we're going. We have the coordinates, now that someone has reminded Archer that he had them all along. So let's get ourselves there. And this is going to be a move. We know where we're going, so that move is going to be set a course, which says when you follow a known route through perilous space, across hazardous terrain, or within a mysterious site, roll plus supply. So I guess we will roll plus Archer supply, which is 2. Not that good, but okay, let's make the move. Rolling plus supply. That's a miss. Jesus, I can't do anything about that. No momentum burns will save me there. Okay, fine. On a miss, you are waylaid by a significant threat and must pay the price. If you overcome this obstacle, you may push on safely to your destination. This is just great, but I think I know what I'm going to do with this, and it's a good opportunity to circle back to some story threads that we've not tugged on in a while, should we say. So Archer, Luna, and the Conduit are all separately doing their own things on board whilst the Eclipse is in the drift. Luna is busying herself with some repairs. The Pact, when they were stripping the ship out, they did a lot of damage to the interior of the ship, and she's taking the time to get things back to how she wants them. And I think that in the time that she's been a crewmate on this ship, she's done this periodically, like put things the way that she wants them. She's made these like enhancements and modifications along the way, and Archer generally is happy for her to do so. And she's also happy doing this. It gives her a purpose. It makes sense to her. And at the moment, right now, it's distracting her from the sense of grief and guilt that she is plagued with. And the Conduit is pacing the narrow corridor that connects the various parts of the ship. And she pauses to study something that is carved into the paneling on one of the walls. It's a strange symbol. Circles within circles bisected by a cross. She traces her fingers around it, and as she does, she becomes aware that she is being watched. When she turns, she sees no one in the corridor. The shadows are resting in the cargo hold, and temporary beds have been laid out for the 8 remaining alive, and they quietly recuperate, rest, and silently draw comfort from each other's company. And in the archive, Archer is attempting to restore the professor's body of work. The Pact clearly had no interest in the contents of the archive, but they trashed it anyway. He spends hours painstakingly reordering recordings, field notes, maps, diagrams, much of it damaged beyond repair. This sort of work focuses him, and the fact that much of it is now lost is overshadowed by the fact that there is a very real chance he will soon learn definitively what happened to Professor Darwin. The Eclipse's crew, such as it is, are all brought out of whatever they are doing as a klaxon sounds. It's the alarm for them dropping out of the drift, but they are way too early, given where the coordinates should have taken them. Luna calls them all back to the bridge. Archer and the conduit enter to see Luna staring at a slim, chrome device poking out of the E-drive. It is giving off a high-pitched beeping, and the monitor attached is filling with text that Luna is desperately trying to pass. And she says, "Oh, this is bad." Archer moves over to the pilot's chair and looks out of the viewport. The lights of the drift quickly dissipate and the Eclipse finds itself dropping into a war zone. Archer grabs the yoke and takes immediate evasive action, evading two snub fighters locked in a dogfight barreling towards them. Luna is flung across the cockpit and the conduit holds on for dear life, and the Eclipse is rocked by explosions and the viewport fills with flames. Proximity alarms blare. Archer pulls up and levels the ship, and everyone gets a look at the scene outside. There are two vast armadas clashing in amongst the splintered wreckage of what they recognize as Narthex Prime. When the pact fell, the blockades disbanded and the clans entered the Delphian flux, ready to fill the power vacuum. And it looks like clans Thorn and Kraken came to make sure the pact were actually gone. The wreckage and debris spreads out as far as the eye can see. The damage Archer caused was just the beginning. Narthex Prime has been mercilessly destroyed, obliterated by two huge fleets of ships, capital-class cruisers, corvettes, hunters and dreadnoughts, descending on the coordinates and finishing the job. And now, with the pact gone, they are turning on each other. Archer jerks the yoke again to avoid a shuttle streaking flame and smoke behind it, and he rolls the Eclipse into a spin, barely missing two huge chunks of Narthex Prime's blackened hull drifting towards them. He needs to get them out of there and fast. They won't be able to survive. They have dropped right into a crossfire. So let's try and wriggle out of this. I think Archer is going to have to weave his way through this chaos somehow, and he's got a plan. He calls the conduit over and motions for her to take the yoke, and she says, "Have you lost your fucking mind?" And Archer says, "Just get us closer to one of the cruisers, the biggest one." And the conduit is baffled and says, "Closer?" The conduit has no choice but to comply, reacts as fast as she can, ducking and weaving her way through the incoming fire. Missiles streak across the black, fighters explode, wreckage and plumes of flame smash into the Eclipse's hull as they pass close, too close. Up ahead, one of the great clan Thorn ships, gilded with the rose gold thorns along the length of its mighty hull, comes into view. And the conduit, against her better judgment, plunges the yoke down, and they move towards it at alarming speed. And Luna says, "This feels like something I would do." And Archer is on his knees at the E-Drive console. He has the chrome device in his hand. He's working at it with this little multi-tool, prizing back the wires that run around the outside of it. He's got a plan. He's going to try and use this device, because this device, it relays jump data, right? And it's got the data in it of all the clan ships in the proximity. But he's got an idea. He is going to broadcast rather than receive. And he's going to use that to try and confuse the fleets into thinking the other is jumping. The Eclipse's E-Drive is very nearly charged. This could buy them the time they need, and this is definitely a move. And the move is secure an advantage, which says when you assess a situation, make preparations or attempt to gain leverage, envision your action and roll. And this is going to be with expertise, focus or observation. So let's secure an advantage, rolling plus wits. A weak hit, that will do. It says on a hit you succeed, on a strong hit you take both, on a weak hit choose one, and we have a choice of +2 momentum or +1 on our next move. I will definitely take the +1. Archer is working with incredible speed, and the device, which was sleek and elegant, is now just a mess of wires and soldered metal and kind of fractured shaft. He has another device plugged into it, and it links it to the E-Drive, and he is frantically punching digits into the E-Drive. After a second, the readout turns red rather than green, and Archer reaches up and flicks a switch to send the information. And again, the Eclipse dodges and dives between laser fire. The conduit is skillfully evading the carnage. And that capital ship is getting closer. Archer looks at the screen and it stops filling with text. And it turns green again. And the device lets out its little high-pitched screech. The screen starts to fill with new data. And the chaos outside changes completely. The huge capital ships facing off against each other from a distance begin to maneuver, and the smaller ships break off engagement and turn back to their armadas. Both sides think the other is about to jump, and it appears everyone is equally as confused. This seems to have worked. The conduit guns the Eclipse towards the Clan Thorn flagship. But then an alarm goes off. It is a missile lock. So let's make a move. And that move is Face Danger, which says when you attempt something risky or react to an imminent threat, envision your action and roll. And then we have options. I think that this is actually going to be Shadow, I think. Because what Archer is doing is trickery, isn't it? He's deceiving both clans to kind of buy himself some time. So let's Face Danger, rolling plus Shadow. A strong hit. Okay, everyone hears the lock. Archer and Luna share a panicked look, then back at the console. The E-drive is nearly there. The alarm sounds louder. The E-drive is nearly there. A proximity alarm drowns out the missile lock. The E-drive is nearly there. Out of the viewport, the conduit can see 2 incoming missiles streaking towards them. The E-drive is nearly there. She can't shake these missiles off. The E-drive is nearly there. Luna deploys the countermeasures, and the E-drive is nearly there. It's no use. Brace for impact. 5, 4, 3, 2. An Archer punches the drive as it hits 100%, and all that's left of the Eclipse in the chaos of the firefight is the pink and purple wisps of the drift. So that was close. With the strong hit on Face Danger, we get a +1 to momentum, so up to 6. And that is the obstacle overcome from our miss on that set of course move. And a little reminder of the wider story for those who might not have it so fresh in their minds. The war that we have avoided for the best part of a season and a half is still raging, and if anything, we've just seen it's ramping up, and with the Pact gone, it's only going to get worse. So we make it where we're going, because set of course says if you overcome the obstacle, you may push on safely to your destination, which is, of course, the Iron Gate. So, like, who knows how accurate this map is, or where the conduit got it from, or if it's even real. But we find the Eclipse and its crew exactly where the coordinates tell them they should be. And I think I'm going to ask the Oracle to give this a little flavour, a little bit of something to bring it to life. So what do we see when we arrive? 89 is dense nebula cloud. Okay, so this piece of space is unlike the others. As they drop out of the drift, it's almost as if the spectral lights that accompany them doing so have not dissipated. It's as if they have just changed colour. There are these shifting plumes of blue and indigo swirling around them. Crackles of energy snap between fragments of rock that glide past the viewport. Visibility is poor, but the proximity alarms aren't picking anything up, so they glide slowly into the nebula with only the conduit's info for guidance. Or so they think. As their eyes are glued to the viewport, none of them notice the shadows have entered behind them, and none of them notice the pale yellow light behind the conduit's eyes as she unknowingly steers the ship in a different direction. The clouds eventually clear and we see what we've been looking for, and I don't want this to be just another giant floating iron ring in space. We've done all those. I want this to be weird, and I had a thought about this. And I was thinking, what if this Iron Gate, what if this was suspended between 2 halves of a fractured moon? Like there's this sandy grey cratered moon, slightly misshapen, and it has been cracked in 2 completely. But there's something carved on the inside of each half, like almost where the core of the moon would be. I think there are two mighty humanoid figures standing hundreds of meters high. Two powerful figures made from perfectly geometric shapes, each with a blocky triangular head. Each has their arms stretching out before them, and they each hold either side of a giant black iron gate. This is inside a moon, so this makes it by far, by a considerable distance, the biggest gate we have ever seen. It is kilometers across. It is huge. And before Archer and the others can even comprehend its scale fully, it starts to glow. Archer turns to see the shadows behind them, performing the dance of light and shadow. This is the biggest gate we've ever seen. This is going to take something else to activate it. Archer, before he even starts to think, can feel himself stepping backwards, almost taking a step out of himself. He can feel himself falling in alongside the shadows and feel his hands coming up in front of him to paint the symbol. Circles within circles. This is the biggest gate we have ever seen, and this is going to be a roll. And it makes sense that that roll is face danger, which says when you attempt something risky or react to an imminent threat, envision your action and roll. This is absolutely with intense focus that it's going to require all of Archer's energy to hold. So let's face danger, rolling, plus wits. A miss with a match. I think we all know what this means. We know that Archer is not the only person who has this map. Well, it's time we caught up with an old friend. The gate's structure hums with power, a milky white light pulsing powerfully at its centre, brightening until it's almost blinding. The conduit doesn't notice herself nudging the yoke forward, and before she can process it, the eclipse is pulled through. But the gate remains glowing brightly. And after a moment, a large shape is silhouetted against the light of the gate. Pushing its way slowly through the cloud is a huge ship. Well, it's more building than ship. With baroque domes and cathedral-like spires, the flagship of the Soulbinders emerges. We see the light of the gate flood the bridge. The crew shield their eyes, cower at the gate's majesty. But the commander of this vessel stands. He is hunched over, pained almost. We see the twisted, contorted form of Azrael Vega, more than half his face now entirely made of black iron. He stares into the blazing light and smiles as his eyes and mouth glow an ominous pink. There is a crack, followed by a boom, as the mighty craft is pulled through the gate. The light fades sharply, and the blue nebulous cloud once again shrouds the broken moon. Thank you a million times. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe if you have not done so already, and click the little bell icon so you can be notified as soon as the next episode drops. And please do check out the Bad Spot Patreon. I'll be back next time, but until then, it's farewell and safe passage.